Hey guys, so today I have an amazing guest on the podcast. I'm super excited to talk with her because I actually read about her through a Time magazine article. It was the March 2020 edition. And so her name is Traci Burton and she is from Michigan, same as me. And so Traci, could you just tell listeners a bit about yourself and a bit about this kind of topic that you're super passionate about?
Yes, so as she said, my name is Traci Burton. I'm 25 years old. I am currently serving in a school district in Michigan. Um, the past couple years have been a bit of a whirlwind. In 2017, that's when I was first introduced to the inequalities and inequities on a larger scale because I came back to my original school district and served as a substitute teacher. And it became very evident at that point that there was a crack in the system. And unfortunately and disproportionately, Black students were falling in that crack. So now we're here, and my eyes have been opened, and also I feel like I have been just blessed with the opportunity to really make an impact in education and just plan to continue to do so.
Yeah, definitely. That's so amazing to hear. You know, that like after coming back to your hometown and seeing how segregated the education community is, especially for the Black community, that's amazing that, you're actually using your time now to make that difference and an impact. So now just like segueing into your Time magazine article, I would love to know how you were like initially contacted by Time magazine, or did you reach out to Time yourself?
I definitely didn't reach out to Time Magazine myself. I would definitely say that it was one of those divine moments. I actually have it right here, and
Oh,
I think the thing that was just so shocking to me was to be, first of all, it came out during Black History Month. Um, to be featured in a magazine such as Time Magazine, where Dr. Martin Luther King is the cover in Black History Month. I mean, I cried and I cried and I cried. So it really came about. I think it's a twofold answer to that. Back in 2019, I was a part of a video that went viral where I worked with some students in Benton Harbor, Michigan, and it's a video called Get Up, and that video reached over 250,000 views on YouTube. Not on YouTube, I'm sorry, on Facebook. So it elevated student voice, and really from that, we were getting contacted by the press and we were getting contacted by news people, and just it was like a literally year-long whirlwind of exposure to the issues, and then also to just the great talent that's in the city. So fast forward to that point, I ended up working for the district again, and I was working with local press. The story came out, and from working with the local press, someone from Ed Build reached out to me. The CEO of EdBuild, actually, she had been doing a report on the most segregated school districts in the country, and Benton Harbor area schools happened to be on that list as number 8. So we could feel it. We knew something was off. We knew something was wrong, but to actually have it affirmed in research and in data was something that was definitely, it was shocking, but it was also again affirming. So from that, she called me one day and she said, Time Magazine wants to pick this story up and they want to interview you. And I'm like, um, okay. And so I think in that moment it didn't really hit me because I was just really concerned with getting all the interviews together and making sure the right people were in the room and connecting with the students. And early this year, Time wrote it out, and Kevin Carey was the person who actually wrote the article. They flew down Kevin, they flew down photographers, and it was an experience like no other. Time did such a wonderful job reporting on such a hard topic. They did it with such integrity, and I am truly forever grateful for the opportunity, but also for the exposure that it brought about to education inequality and segregated school district borders.
Right, definitely. And I think that's crazy to hear that Benton Harbor is number 8, you said on the list, right, of most segregated school districts. And I feel like personally, me living in Michigan, right, I always think these things, they don't happen like around, even like, I think anybody, they always feel like, oh, these problems, are outside of me. It's not in my state. I don't have to worry about it. When in reality, this could be happening in like the neighborhood next door. You never know. And so that's just really eye-opening and crazy to think, that like literally next door, um, it's segregated that much that it's like eighth in the country or world. But I love how you are again bringing awareness to this topic, and I would just love to know when you like first kind of realized or saw this like huge inequality in education, especially towards the Black community.
I would say 2017 was when I came back. So I went to Benton Harbor area schools K through fifth grade. And then in the fifth grade, my parents moved us to a predominantly white school district. And from sixth grade to 12th grade, that's pretty much my educational story is being taught in predominantly white schools and living in predominantly white neighborhoods. So I had the fortunate experience of going to Ben Harbor area schools, and it was a performing arts school at that time. So it was one of the best schools in that area, and I had a very rich foundation. But it was something that was going on where my parents made the decision in the sixth grade to move us out of districts. And a lot of parents have unfortunately had to make those decisions. So when I came back in 2017 to serve as a substitute teacher, and I realized at that time, and it's changing now, at that time, we didn't have new textbooks as a teacher. There wasn't up to date technology. We had severe literacy gaps. It felt like I was in a civil rights movie a lot of times. Like I kept thinking like this is unreal. And then understanding that I was teaching third grade at the time. And so I couldn't help but to think about myself as a third grader and how, you know, I had one teacher. Some of our students could have 8 teachers in one year just because of high turnover rates. And think about that as an elementary school student, that is insane and unacceptable. So I was living this really kind of torn experience of grieving for my students, grieving for my community, and also understanding that it doesn't have to be this way because I had such a great experience in the district. So there that's when I would say I was first introduced to the issue, and that was back in 2017 when I was actually in the classroom.
Yeah, that's crazy to hear that, like having to have such a surreal experience being back in your classroom, back in Benton Harbor where you grew up and seeing, like you said, you're in a civil rights movie almost, it seemed like, and having that high of a turnover rate where you're going through 8 teachers, I can't even imagine that. I think the most amount of teachers I've had in like my whole like high school and like even elementary career has only been like two teachers per year, which is insane to me to think that some kids would have like over 8 teachers per year because that's just how high, like you said, is the turnover rate. Um, and yeah, that's crazy to think about. But again, I'm so glad that you are trying your best to raise awareness now for this issue. But I would love to know like what other ways you're raising issues other than these like viral videos and
Yeah.
being in Time magazine articles. Are there any other ways that you're just trying to help raise awareness again?
I would say that one of the things that really helped me in my classroom experience is understanding hip hop pedagogy. So there is a book by Dr. Christopher Emden, and the name of the book is called "For White Folks Who Teach in the Hood and the Rest of Y'all Too." So I grew up in the outskirts of Ben Harbor. I grew up in like a really country town, and it's called Sodus, Michigan. So that is a part of Ben Harbor area schools, but I was bused into Benson Harbor. So I didn't necessarily live in the city or have that experience. So um, there were a lot of things that I needed to learn, and that book really did help me. So that really did show me how hip hop could be used as a teaching tool. And that's one way I'm raising awareness, is really showing people that reality pedagogy is a real thing. Hip hop pedagogy is a real thing. Meeting people where they are, using real life experiences to teach and to connect with students is one of the best things that we can do. I do have a book club called Pretty Girls Read, and I work with young girls 3rd grade through 6th grade, and we read different culturally relevant books and materials. And it's more so just a way for me to connect with some of my former students. But more than anything, I'm a student. Um, I'm a, yeah, I can't really emphasize that enough. I'm not here to, I think that sometimes we can go in with the idealistic mindset that we're going to change the issues, we're going to change the system, kind of like this savior mentality. And the most humbling experience that I've had is that people don't need saving. We're not an expert on anybody's lives. A lot of these things are systemic, and we have to be willing to buck against the system that we know is harming people. And so I have been blessed and fortunate enough to learn from my community and to learn from my students and learn from the families that I get to encounter. It's really been just a humbling experience.
Yeah, definitely. And I love how you're taking those like small steps with like, having your book club, right, for girls. I love that because I think you mentioned in your Time article that there are like 3rd graders that are illiterate, which that's insane to me. I can't even imagine being in 3rd grade and not even be able to like read what's on like your worksheet or read maybe a sign on the street, something like that. I can't even imagine that. So, but even, having a book club, right, where you're encouraging people to read, I think that's just even the first step to helping hopefully change the system. But I also love how you understand that it's not going to happen overnight. I think a lot of people, right? Like, I think a lot of people, they think when they go into these issues and try to raise awareness, they think, oh, I want to change the system so bad. But like you said, it doesn't happen overnight. And it's something super, like, kind of ingrained in the culture of like our country and systematic, like you said. So it is going to take a while, but I love how you are taking those small steps to helping hopefully change it in the future. And then yeah, of course. And then I would love to know if you could just tell others, and even myself, I would love to know how I can help and how they can help.
As far as education equality, or just, I think that's a loaded question. I think the biggest thing is to really understand. I think for me, like, I knew being in Benton Harbor and serving in urban education was a calling, and that I needed to be there, and I needed to witness the things that I needed to bear witness to what I was being told, but I needed to actually be in the room. And I want to touch on the 3rd grade um, literacy. So there is a thing in Michigan. We now have the 3rd grade reading law that says if you are not reading at a 3rd grade level by 3rd grade, excuse me, you can be held back. So the issue with that systematically is if students are not coming to school ready, um, and then we have this law that already exasperates an exasperated system, because now you're going to need more 3rd grade teachers. And then it's so many different layers to that. So I would say know what systems are impacting people in areas that um, don't necessarily have the resources. Like, being able to have those conversations with lawmakers, being able to have that conversation with policy makers, board members, and being aware of what's going on. I think so many times I run across people who, ignorance is bliss in a sense, but when it's really serious issues, it's not. So even if it's not literacy for you that you're super passionate about, know what is happening in these other communities. Like, immerse yourself in a sense to where you can speak intelligently about certain things and then be able to advocate for those things. Um, I don't know. I think I always say just love on a child, hug a child, be nice to a child. Like, I think sometimes it's not the big things. It's really just like looking somebody in the face and volunteering an hour of your time, or donating like books, like the biggest thing is multicultural libraries. Like a lot of times, like I had to dig through tons of books to find books that could relate to different cultures. Like it's so many different layers, I think, that, you know, I had students who spoke different languages. Like, how do I find literacy or literature that speaks to their culture? So that's also bucking against the system. Everything is not about the Western world, Western civilization. We need to see people of color in order to develop a reading identity. We have to see and feel people that look like us. So I hope that helped. Um, a lot of people ask me tangible ways, and it's really hard to pinpoint one thing. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of people just do like I call it like drive by ministry, or like drive by interventions, where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna donate a whole bunch of books, and that's fine. There's nothing against that. But I'm really big on the intention behind it. And, you know, we can think we're helping, but just understanding the issue so that we are actually contributing, you know, in a integral way, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I would definitely agree with that because I think even when I just read that article, right, I think that was my first time really realizing that there was this huge education inequality, especially like I said, in Michigan, where I'm from. Even just reading that one article that really helps educate me a bit more on this issue. And it also helps humble me, like you said, like just researching the thing, right? And even it's not even about just learning about the information, but also just seeing how privileged of a life you live and how grateful you should be for everything that you have, because there's people out there struggling even in, like you said, third grade to be able to read like a sentence. And so I think, yeah, so I think that's super important. And I like also how you said it can even be the tiniest things, like just like you said, giving a child a hug and caring on children. And I think that's so important because like just like you said, giving them that like care and showing them that you actually care for like their education for them as kids. I think that'll just definitely motivate them as children to hopefully like, I don't know how to word this, but like just hopefully gain something new out of like this, if that makes sense. But yeah, I totally agree with all those points. Now going or last question on like education inequality. I would love to know like what you ultimately want to have or what impact you ultimately want to have on education inequality.
I thought, like, coming into education, like my first exposure to the classroom was in third grade, and that's when I was exposed to just this huge literacy gap. And I just knew that I was supposed to create programs and all of these things. Now, being even a mom myself, my daughter is going to be 2 in November, and she's already knowing so many different things about books, so many different things about, you know, phonics, and me understanding that it really starts well before a child gets to school. So I would really, I'll ultimately end up owning my own school. I don't know what type of school, I don't know any of that, but I know that I want to be a part of the rearing process. And it'll most likely be an early childhood education. My grandparents, they owned a child care center for 20 years, and kids will be coming out at 2 and 3 years old knowing how to read. So I definitely want to be able to make that impact and also work with students who are struggling readers and adults who are struggling readers, because I think that there's so much shame and stigma attached to literacy or not being able to read or not being able to engage. And I've met so many amazing people along the way that just affirm the need for this work, but also um, I don't know, just looking at it from both sides. Like, I don't want to leave necessarily anybody behind, but I know my part in it is going to look different at various seasons of my life. Like, right now, I know that I can make the best impact with moms and dads and parents who are raising younger kids, because that's the season of life I'm in. And then eventually, as my daughter gets older, it'll be that natural progression of things. But I would love to impact early childhood education. Um, I'm really big on just raising confidence and esteem, because a lot of times you will find that people won't even try something and if they don't have confidence. So really, if a child is in my classroom and we only make a certain amount of gain in like on these standardized tests, but they leave with confidence to try again, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that because I kind of struggled with that myself too. Because I'm very fortunate to be in like a very well-funded district and have all these amazing teachers and even peers, right? But sometimes it can get very competitive with my peers where it feels like everybody's trying to butt heads and one up each other, and it's like this very competitive atmosphere. And so before I had this podcast, like before quarantine, and I didn't have this podcast, I always had this idea, right, of starting a podcast, but I was just so scared and I wasn't confident in myself to start it that it was just holding me back. All of my doubts and even like my peers and what they were going to say if I was going to fail, that was just holding me back from starting this. But once I got over that and like during quarantine, I realized I have no excuses to not start it, right? Because I don't have like tests, standardized tests, I don't have school, I have no excuse. I was like, I'm just going to go for it. And right when I took that first step, even just searching up online how to start a podcast and finding these resources, it just helped change my mindset so much, and I just felt more confident in myself to just go for things, right, and to not be scared to go for something and just feel more confident in myself, and it has benefited me so much. So I totally agree with that because I think instilling that confidence within children, especially when they're young, that really carries like that mindset throughout their life, and it'll just help them to have this type of mindset and be more successful in the future. So I totally agree with that. And now going on to more mindset, because that's kind of what my podcast is more about. I would love to know if you could describe a time when you were criticized and how did you handle it?
I think when I was in the classroom, I forgot which Cardi B song was out, but I was using a Cardi B song to teach multiplication. And I think a lot of people didn't understand, but you know, I think everybody in my class ended up getting 100% on that test. And that was the first time that I saw 100% success rate. So I handled it by the fruit of my students and understanding that I don't have to be understood or liked, or judgment is fine. Like I live. If my students are benefiting from the things that we're doing, they'll understand at some point. And if they choose not to, that's okay. Like we all are going to teach and do things differently. So I just handled it by celebrating the success of my students at the time.
Yeah, exactly. And I definitely agree with that as well because I feel like, so many people will judge you for like the things you do, but just because they judge you doesn't mean what you do isn't going to be successful, right? Obviously, you
Right.
got, right, right. Obviously, you got so much success from this, having almost all your students pass. And I think if I was your student, I would love, because I love Cardi B. So, like, I would love to learn multiplication with, a Cardi B song. That would be so much fun. But if
Right.
other people, like, don't have the same viewpoints, I think that's just, like they shouldn't their judgment right shouldn't have to affect what you feel, and I think you took that well, right? You're like, no, it doesn't matter because you got success out of that. And I think an example that I can also give was one of my teachers, my French teacher. He was like the first one to use Schoology for our school, and everybody was criticizing him and being like, oh yeah, this isn't going to work for our school, we're never going to use it. But now we're using it for our whole district. Like that just shows, just because people are criticizing you doesn't mean that it really like means anything. If you just know that your idea is like a good idea and just keep going with it and you find success, that just shows other people's criticism. It doesn't really like if you don't take it, as that of a personal thing or just and stick with your idea, it's just gonna become successful, right? And so I definitely agree with that. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And it's the old saying, first they laugh, then they copy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the nature of life.
Exactly, exactly. Totally agree. And now my next question is definitely a little bit deeper, so I don't totally understand if you need some time to think about it. But what do you think is your greatest failure, and what do you think you learned from it?
I thought about this question. My greatest failure, I had the opportunity to work for a one of the largest companies in the world, and I didn't take the opportunity seriously enough. I was fired from the job, and the biggest, although a very very hard lesson and a failure on my part, I'm number one grateful that I even got the opportunity to go and experience the company. Number one. Number two, it taught me to take opportunities very seriously, because a lot of times, especially in our youth, in our younger years, we are handed kind of like gold in a sense, and we kind of just treat it like it's nothing. And even though I'm about to be moving into more of like mid to late 20s, I even look at the smallest opportunity as something that could possibly get me to my next level, or something that I should really just be a great steward over. So from that failure, it just has made me more keenly aware of all of the opportunities and to take them seriously and not fumble it.
Yeah, definitely. And I've heard this saying that sometimes your greatest failure can turn into your greatest like opportunity almost and greatest lesson, right? Because I think you learn some really important lessons for life through this failure. And so I think it's so important to just like be able to go through a failure, especially early, so that you know what to fix later. Because like a lot of my peers, I feel like they always think they have to be the best at everything, right? And even some of them will get mad if they like score 1 point lower than like their other peers, and I'm like, that's not even a failure, you're still like passing amazingly. And so I think they just have to learn that, you're going to face a failure at some time, right? Whether it be if you're fired from your job or if you don't get the score that you want, you're still just going to have to overcome that sometime, and sometimes that can become, your greatest lesson or your greatest opportunity. So I definitely agree with that. And then my next question is a little bit more optimistic, not like what's your greatest failure, but I would love to know what you think your proudest achievement is.
My proudest achievement. Hmm. I don't know. I don't, that's, I think my most recent proudest achievement is during COVID. I've been an entrepreneur kind of for a while, but during COVID, I took a leap of faith and started a marketing company. So I would say that's something that, because I could easily say, oh, Time Magazine, or I was recently nominated for like 40 under 40 here in Southwest Michigan for like careers. I could say those things, but those are things that other people have said about me in a sense. Like Time wrote that. Somebody nominated me for 40 under 40. But with this business, this is something that was birthed through tears, through fear, through pain, through laughter, through hope. And that's something that, um, I'm building from the ground up with the help of God. And I'm excited about it. And yeah, I would say that's probably my most recent biggest achievement.
Yeah, definitely. I would think I would agree too if I was in your shoes, because if you put all that work in it, like you said, you laughed, cried, all your tears and effort was put into this achievement, and it wasn't like something that other people kind of as a title, right? Like you said, like you can say, "Oh, I was featured in Time Magazine. Oh, I'm 40 under 40," but this is something that you kind of, like you said, birthed yourself. So it's like your own achievement. So yeah, I would definitely agree with that as well. And now my last mindset question is, who do you think has impacted your life the most and how?
Impacted my life the most, definitely my parents. Um, and now even being a parent myself, I understand how deeply vital and critical the role of a parent is in a child's life. My parents were, looking back, it's it's not, I don't think it's by any coincidence that I'm in education now, because my parents were so serious about our education. They I mean, we could barely even go outside until we had some type of like book report done, some type of reading done. Like this was, so all of this I think that's happening in my life now was a direct result of what my parents poured into me educationally. And I get to benefit from that. And so I would definitely say, yeah, for sure, 100% my parents.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something a lot of people overlook is they don't realize how much of an impact their parents have on them. And even like you said, the way that they pressure you in academics or education, that can change your whole life career. Because I recently just listened to this like other podcast episode. It's kind of an old one, but it's basically about these two fashion kind of style influencers, I would say, and they were brought up in New York, and their parents were very influential, rich people. But because their parents were so like rich and influential, they didn't have time to take care of them, right, and care about their education. So these kids, since the parents didn't care about them, and they didn't have very strict like rules of like having to finish their work right before you go out, they ended up just being on the streets a lot more and going into fashion more and like the street style wear and things like that. So their whole life career could have changed if their parents just emphasized education more. So I totally agree with that. Now going on into some fun questions. I would love to know what the last book you read was.
The last book was You Go Girl. So it's more like a workbook. I forget the author's name, but yeah, it pretty much helps you map out your goals, map out your next season, map out short-term goals, setting smart goals, and those different. I'm really big on like writing things down. So yeah, I actually got that book from Five Below actually.
Ooh,
Yeah, yeah, it's just a really good workbook.
yeah, maybe I'll check it out then because I really am getting more into like writing down goals, especially short-term goals. Because I think something that I used to overlook with short-term goals, I used to always just have huge ambitions and like huge long-term goals, but I didn't have the short-term goals to lead up to it. So
Right.
yeah, I'm definitely gonna check out Five Below then.
Yeah.
And then my next question is, what's the best like movie or TV show you've seen in the last year or years?
Well, my favorite movie is Freedom Writers. I don't know if
Oh,
you've seen Freedom Writers, but writers, because they do have Freedom Writers, Rider, but I'm talking about Freedom Writers, Writers. But that's featuring Erin Gruelle. She was like a very influential teacher in California. And yeah, I mean, anytime I need a boost or something to help me keep going in this field because it does get difficult. Um, I mean, I love that movie. I love it.
yeah, definitely. I have heard so much good things about it. I definitely need to check it out though, so I will definitely check it out soon. And then my next question is, who are your heroes or just people you look up to? And this can mean anybody, right? From actresses and actors to like Nobel Peace Prize winners, anybody.
People that I look up to. I love Michelle Obama. I mean, yeah, Michelle Obama is a class act. I love everything about her. To see just a really powerful woman who stands for something and speaks up for justice. I really love Michelle Obama. Otherwise, I mean, I love Beyonce. I love her work ethic. I love Nadia Lopez. She is a education advocate as well out of New York. I love Christopher Emden, another education advocate. Yeah, those are short list.
Definitely. I would have to agree with those as well. Beyonce, Michelle Obama, my faves as well. I think Michelle Obama just came out with a podcast. I've been listening. I love it so much. And like you said, I love how Michelle Obama, she doesn't just like sit back while Obama was president. She still did her own thing, still did a lot of activism and tried to help improve different things, like especially the food in school lunches. So she's done so many amazing things. I definitely agree with that. My last fun question before just some fun brain teasers are what do you do in your spare time or just for fun?
Who? I need to get more of that. I try to really mark out some time for that, but I do read a lot. Like I am a really big research girl. So while that, because I'm not in school anymore, I graduated, I can do it for fun. So I am like research queen. I love reading articles or pulling different things out from little things. I love eating. I love buying the food and have other people cook it because I don't really enjoy cooking that much. Um, what else do I do for fun? I like shopping, going to the beach. We have a beach that's really close. Like I live about 5 minutes away from the beach, so love that. What else? Just hanging out with my grandparents for sure. That's always a good laugh. So
Yeah, definitely. I also love shopping, even just like window shopping, just looking at the clothes, love it. Definitely agree. So now some brain teasers. These are really fun and chill. So if you were or if you could be any animal in the world, what animal do you think you would be and why?
any animal. Hmm. I don't know why tiger comes to mind. Um, I don't know. I think tigers are just cool. Like it's
Hmm.
just a powerful animal. So I don't know. I love Lion King. Well,
Yeah.
no, tigers and lions are two different things. But anyway, like you get what I'm saying. Like I don't know. Like either a tiger or a lion for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that as well because tigers and lions, they're so like courageous and brave. And I can definitely see you embodying that, right? With how you're advocating for equal education. And like I can tell you have that fierceness, right, in you. So I would agree with that as well.
Thank
Yeah, of course. My last final question is you've been given an elephant, okay, but you can't give it away or sell it. What would you do with the elephant?
I've been given an elephant, but I can't give it away or sell it. You
Mhm.
know what? I will probably move somewhere where I can like start a business around this elephant. I don't know if you can like pet elephants. Like I don't want to like I don't know. Like I would probably start some type of business. If I can't get rid of it, I might as well figure out how to have little kids come and read with the elephant or pet the elephant or I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure.
No, I love that though, because I can tell, just through that you have that entrepreneurial like mindset, right? Where you're like, you know what, I'm
Yeah.
gonna like make a business out of this, right? So I love that. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Tracy, for being on. This was such a good time and pleasure to have you. And I love learning just so much more about you and about how I personally can advocate, right, for equal education. And I think listeners will learn just so much about this and like how they themselves can help. So do you have any last ending notes or any plugs for anything?
Not at this time. What are you still in high school?
Yeah, I'm still in high school. I'm a senior this year.
Okay, that's really cool. I would just say for you, I think what you're doing is so admirable, especially at such a young age. Definitely keep going. You know, it can get difficult when you're paving your own path. So stay focused. And yeah, I mean, I expect more great things from you in this podcast. So I'm excited and thank you so much for the opportunity to get the message out.
Of course. Well, thank you so much. That's so like that means so much to me. Like you have no idea because I look up to you so much and this just means the world. So thank you so much. And
You're
um
welcome.
yeah, of course. Well, thank you guys for listening. Bye.